Cipher Mining stock had a big move on Friday, closing the session up by 8.8% or 88 cents, finishing the day at $10.85 per share. For anyone who has been following the crypto and AI space, this is a company that's starting to attract a lot more attention, and the reasons behind the rally tell us quite a bit about where sentiment is shifting in the market right now. At the center of this story is a name that will be familiar if you've been tracking high-growth opportunities, and that's Eric Jackson. He's one of the investors who has been riding momentum with Opendoor, but Cipher Mining is also one of his top 3 picks. So today, I want to walk through what's going on with the stock, why it's running, how it ties to the broader Bitcoin and AI narratives, and what it means for investors who are looking to follow the signals from some of the sharper stock pickers out there. Let's start with the immediate picture. Cipher Mining is a Bitcoin miner, but it's also much more than that. The company recently reported its August operational update, and the numbers were strong. They mined about 241 Bitcoin during the month, which was a double-digit increase compared to July. Out of that, they sold 42 Bitcoin and ended the month holding about 1,414 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's a significant treasury position for a company of this size, because it gives them leverage not only to their operations but also directly to the price of Bitcoin. They had roughly a 23 exahash per second mining capacity at the end of the month, with the expectation that they'll reach 23.5 exahash by the end of the third quarter. That's not just incremental growth, it shows steady scaling of their Black Pearl facility, which is quickly becoming the backbone of their expansion story. Black Pearl is worth pausing on. Phase 1 of this facility is already running and contributed about 39% of the total Bitcoin mined in August. Cipher is targeting roughly 10 exahash of capacity from Black Pearl Phase 1 alone, and once it's fully ramped up, the facility will anchor the company as one of the more efficient and scalable miners out there. What's different about Cipher, compared to some of its competitors, is that this facility isn't only designed for Bitcoin mining. It's also positioned as a future hub for AI and high-performance computing hosting. In other words, they're not just looking at the crypto cycle, they're building infrastructure that can be leased or partnered with in the booming world of artificial intelligence workloads. That dual exposure is exactly the kind of angle that gets investors excited, because it means you're not entirely dependent on Bitcoin's price, and you've got optionality if AI demand continues to explode. Now, part of what sent the stock higher is that the market is starting to catch on to this story. Analysts have been warming up to Cipher. Canaccord, for example, recently bumped its target price up to $9 and reaffirmed a buy rating, citing strong execution and a clear path forward in both mining and AI infrastructure. That was before this most recent rally, which pushed the stock above $10. The fact that we've now seen follow-through buying shows that institutional sentiment is beginning to align with the retail excitement. And here's where Eric Jackson comes back into the picture. Jackson has been known to find asymmetric opportunities, companies that are underappreciated in the market but have the levers to deliver multi-bagger returns. He was one of the voices amplifying Opendoor's story when it was beaten down and unloved, and has been very public about identifying Cipher as one of his top 3 picks alongside names like IREN. So when you see Cipher catch a bid in this way, it's not just the fundamentals, it's also a confluence of sentiment, narrative, and the influence of investors who have earned a track record for spotting mispriced assets. It's also worth considering the broader environment. Bitcoin itself has been fairly resilient lately, and for miners, that's obviously a tailwind. But what's different this cycle is that investors aren't just rewarding pure hash rate growth, they're looking for efficiency, for cost control, and for adjacency to themes like AI. Cipher checks those boxes. They've deployed 115,000 mining rigs, and their fleet efficiency is running around 17.3 joules per terahash. That places them in a competitive position among industrial miners, and with energy costs being a huge factor in profitability, that efficiency is a big plus. At the same time, the fact that they're building out AI hosting capacity creates a perception that they're part of 2 of the most powerful narratives in markets today, Bitcoin and artificial intelligence. And if there's one thing we know about markets, it's that narrative often drives valuation, especially when you can back it up with actual operational progress. For retail investors, the excitement is understandable. Seeing a stock move nearly 9% in a single session sparks FOMO, and when you tie that to a name backed by Eric Jackson, the interest only compounds. Jackson has been on a bit of a run, with his advocacy for Opendoor coinciding with a major rebound in that stock, and with IREN also delivering strong moves on the back of AI and mining synergies. So if Cipher is in that same bucket of conviction picks, then naturally people want to take a closer look. But the question is always, is this sustainable, or is it just another pop in a very volatile sector? That's where we have to weigh the risks. Bitcoin mining remains capital intensive, and profitability swings with Bitcoin's price, which can be volatile. Energy markets are another wild card, and regulatory pressures on mining aren't going away. The AI hosting angle is promising, but it's still in its early stages, and it will take time to prove that Cipher can compete effectively in that arena. And like all growth names, valuation matters. Stocks can run well above their fundamentals when momentum takes over, and sometimes that retraces just as quickly. But let's be clear, the rally we saw on Friday wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was driven by strong operational updates, visible progress at Black Pearl, analyst recognition, and a broader tailwind from both Bitcoin and AI. The stock was already gaining attention as one of Eric Jackson's top picks, so when you combine all of that, the result is a sharp re-rating. In many ways, this is exactly what Jackson looks for, a situation where the market underestimates the catalysts and then a wave of recognition lifts the stock higher. For investors following along, there are a few ways to think about this. If you're a long-term believer in Bitcoin and you think AI infrastructure is going to keep growing, then Cipher offers exposure to both. If you're more focused on momentum and following the cues from high-conviction stock pickers like Jackson, then you've already seen how the market can react when sentiment aligns. And if you're skeptical, you can still recognize that what's happening here is part of a larger trend, where Bitcoin miners are no longer being valued just as miners, but as potential players in the energy and compute infrastructure for the AI era. Eric Jackson's involvement matters because he's been able to capture attention, not just with his stock picks but with his ability to frame them as bigger opportunities than the market is initially willing to see. With Opendoor, it was about real estate disruption and undervalued optionality. With IREN, it's about crypto mining turning into AI infrastructure. And with Cipher, it's the same story, a misunderstood company, scaling up efficiently, with hidden value in its facilities that goes beyond Bitcoin. Investors who follow him aren't just buying the ticker, they're buying into a framework, a way of looking at companies that puts a spotlight on underappreciated growth levers. So where does that leave us? Cipher Mining is showing that it can execute, with real growth in Bitcoin mined, with large treasury holdings, and with a clear roadmap to expand its hash rate. The Black Pearl facility is a differentiator, both for its contribution to mining output and for its potential as an AI and HPC hub. Analysts are beginning to catch on, and the stock price is reflecting that recognition. Eric Jackson has placed it in his top 3, and for investors who have seen how his conviction picks have played out before, that's a powerful signal. The risks are there, as they always are in mining and emerging tech, but the upside case is clear. Friday's rally may just be the market's way of saying that it's starting to take Cipher more seriously. As always, it comes down to your perspective and risk tolerance. If you're comfortable with volatility and you believe in the long-term themes of Bitcoin and AI, then Cipher Mining might look like an intriguing opportunity, especially now that momentum is picking up. And if you're simply watching to see how Eric Jackson's latest picks unfold, then this is one to keep firmly on your radar. Either way, the story is just getting started, and Friday's move is likely not the last time we see Cipher making headlines.